He obviously, the language barrier, you can't tell jokes. Jokes are such an advanced part of language.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be very proficient in a language to be able to tell and receive jokes, you know.
There's something that you said in your book that really, again, resonated with me, because I thought about my dad, and you talked about your dad. It's very similar to my dad, being very, very funny when you were in Iran. And when you moved to New Zealand, he somehow with the change of language and the change of geographic location and the change of job and, you know, status, and he loses his humor amongst, you know, the people who get to know him. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about experiencing that and seeing your dad necessarily having to shapeshift as he comes to a new place.
Yeah, that's I've read that bit of the book in readings, and yeah, it's always hard for me to like read it out loud, but I like to share that with audiences in New Zealand, because it kind of goes through both of my parents having to shift their identities, and watching that happen in terms of my dad was, I think, the most painful for me. But I really want people to know, when they interact with migrants, you know, that we have an identity outside of this person who's having trouble expressing themselves and is just, you know, doing what you might think is a menial job or whatever. And I think that's what meant that, you know, for my dad, he suddenly had to interact with the world in a way that, for some reason, something must have told him to kind of be, in his gait and the way that he presents himself, a little bit more subservient, a little quieter. He obviously, the language barrier, you can't tell jokes. Jokes are such an advanced part of language.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be very proficient in a language to be able to tell and receive jokes, you know. And so he lost that identity point of being like the center of attention in his friend group, and like the witty, funny one that had us all doubled over, and it just meant that he was this quiet, a little bit hunched, sort of eyes down presence, there wasn't him in terms of what I remember of my childhood. And I think, you know, children of migrant parents that do experience that, we kind of experience that unsettling change.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And
it really is,
when you know your dad is the life of the party in Persian. And then, I mean, my dad was a little worse than yours in the sense that he didn't necessarily always stay quiet. He tried to do the jokes in English, and then people are just kind of like,
that's so good.
We don't get it.
Good on him. I love that. Yeah. Just tell it. Yeah, it's their problem. It's their problem.